Picture a blind man chained between two pillars in the enemy's temple, while a whole civilization laughs at him. That's how the story of Joe McCarthy ends. Politically blind, mocked, censured, abandoned, dead at 48. The historians even have a word for what he was: McCarthyism. A synonym for the witch hunt, the reckless lie, the bully with a list. Here's what they don't tell you. The man who titled the definitive book on McCarthy, 600 pages, footnoted to the teeth, called his final chapter Samson in the Heathen Temple. Because Samson, too, was a flawed man, a compromised man, a man brought down low by his own appetites, blinded, and made a spectacle for the crowd. And in the rubble he pulled down around himself, he was not without his triumph. This afternoon, we're not going to tell you that Joe McCarthy was a saint. He wasn't. We're going to tell you something more unsettling, that almost everything you were taught to believe about him is the exact opposite of the record, and that the machine that inverted it is the same machine running the same play right now. This is a show about the ninth commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness, and about what happens to a nation that forgets it.
Coming up, a special live broadcast of Stanching Tyranny Radio. Here are the hosts of Stanching Tyranny, Jim and Jeff Stanch.
Broadcasting from the spacious KSPF studio in Bonners Ferry, Idaho. Welcome to Stanching Tyranny Radio.
The word communism is back in the news, Bug.
Mm-hmm.
You know what happened.
This very week, yeah. It was big news, and it should be.
Yeah, it should be.
I mean, what happened this week would have been unheard of 20 years ago?
Yeah.
For sure?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Unheard of.
Right.
In a battleground state, a candidate from the openly socialist lane that unashamedly won a major primary. And in another one, a card-carrying DSA member took another primary.
Yeah. The Senate one, he wasn't even card-carrying.
Right.
But
he got the endorsement of the DSA.
But the House election, that guy was card-carrying.
Mm-hmm. This would have been unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
There would have been a laughingstock. Even the idea that somebody with such values, so-called,
mm-hmm.
would even consider running.
Well, it's the thing that earlier generations of Americans mm-hmm. was warned about, and now they're winning elections right out there in the open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But let's set that political end of things aside for at least this first hour, Bug, mm-hmm. because we have to understand that 70 years ago, there was one United States senator who stood up and said that the government itself had been penetrated by communists.
Yeah.
Now, history remembers him as a liar and as a monster, right?
Yeah, you can look it up in your kid's high school history textbook.
Yep.
Look it up.
Yeah. And the picture it will paint is a very negative picture of one Joe McCarthy. But what if the warning he was giving was true?
Right.
And the destroying that man and his message was the whole point.
Yeah. What if it was true and the whole point of what happened was to destroy the messenger?
Yeah.
Because that's what happened.
And in that name, pull off the most successful cover-up in American history. What if that's the case?
Yeah.
I think it was.
I think it was too, and I think we can demonstrate that here on Stanching Tyranny
But
Radio.
first, well, let's explain who Joe McCarthy was. He was a Republican senator from Wisconsin.
You mean Wisconsin?
That's what I meant to say.
That's right.
And he really got his national recognition from a speech he gave in Wheeling, West Virginia. And that speech lit a fuse. He waved the paper around and claimed to hold a list of security cases in the State Department. Later chaired the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations.
So Joseph McCarthy made these accusations at I think it was a women's Republican club there. I think it was Ohio County Women's Republican Club
In Wheeling,
and
West
he
Virginia.
made these claims. But he later was put in the position as chairman of the Senate's very own Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations.
Yeah.
He gave the speech in Wheeling. That was in 1950. He became this chairman in 1953.
Right.
In 1954, he was censured by the very Senate who put him in that chairmanship.
That's right. And
And then he died.
Yeah,
Shortly thereafter.
in 1957. Yeah, that's true. But there are some myths surrounding Joe McCarthy that I think it's important that we clear up here on Stanching Tyranny Radio.
Yeah,
Okay.
one common one is this House Un-American Activities Committee.
Right.
Key word there is House.
Yeah, you'll hear it, and it's repeated over and over again in things like textbooks and newspapers. When they cry about McCarthyism, they'll say that he was involved, or he was the chair, or he was within the House Un-American Activities Committee.
He wasn't.
Right.
He wasn't even in the House of Representatives.
He was
a senator.
Yeah. So he never sat on that committee. Never sat on it.
Yeah.
The infamous are you now or have you ever been?
That they always use. They always pull that out to mock his position.
Senator McCarthy's.
As if he said those words.
But he didn't.
No.
That was said years earlier by Martin Dies, who was of the Dies Committee. And the Dies Committee later became the House Un-American Activities Committee. In the book here we have blacklisted by history.
Yeah, by who was that by?
M. Stanton Evans.
M. Stanton Evans.
And he points out that 10 years before McCarthy, in the late 1930s and early 40s, Martin Dies would play a central role in Congress, eerily similar to the role played by McCarthy a decade later.
Yeah.
And he was the first and longest serving chairman of what would become the House Committee on Un-American Activities.
Mr. Dye was.
Yeah.
Yet the reporting, and this can be confirmed, you can check it yourself. It's in Mr. Evans' book, and it's excellent research. The Los Angeles Times and the Washington Post at the time both referred to Senator Joseph R. McCarthy's House Un-American Activities Committee.
Yeah.
They're reporters, they're professionals. They knew, or at least should have known, that it was the House Un-American Activities Committee was not Joseph McCarthy's.
Right.
It wasn't. It never was.
And in fact, I think they probably did know that, but didn't care. You see, you got to understand that Martin Dies was in the House amongst an electorate that was very different than when McCarthy was in the Senate. And Dies became identified in the public. In other words, the voters knew him to be an anti-subversive, anti-red, anti-communist House member. Right. And if there were any communists, he was going to
flush them out.
Right?
Yeah.
They tried doing all the tricks that they did on McCarthy on Dies.
Yeah. It's interesting.
He was a tough old bird, Bug. He was a tough old bird. And he was popular.
Right.
That's the thing. Martin Dies was popular. Right? He was responsive to the voters. He looked into things. But the elites didn't like him.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why they didn't like him. Because he had character.
Yeah.
He endeavored to always do the right thing. I don't know if the man was a Christian or not.
Right.
But he sure did have some values that we should all aspire to.
Yeah. You have to understand something, listeners. The elite, they don't care if you have some general distaste of communism.
Right.
They don't care. They don't care if a politician has some general distaste of communism and even expresses that.
Yeah.
What they do care about is when you unveil it. Because guess what? The elites love communism and socialism. They love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they benefit from it. You liberals, you think they don't. You're wrong. They do.
Absolutely. There's another myth, though, but I want to make sure that we point out, and that is the myth that McCarthy had no names, just numbers, and they built that around some errors on McCarthy's part,
and he made some errors.
Absolutely, he did. But that wasn't true. He had names.
He absolutely had names.
Those names were ignored, and we'll get into that later.
But that's how they do it, Bo.
Yeah,
they do it slowly and subtly, and they implant the idea into people's minds.
Right.
Because they have control of the media, of the news sources, of entertainment, all those things.
Yeah. And so I don't want to give listeners the idea that we're huge fans of Joe McCarthy and that Joe McCarthy could do no wrong, that he was a saint, because he wasn't.
Right.
He wasn't careful. He was not gracious. He made mistakes.
Yep.
He even, I might say, sometimes dealt deceitfully.
Yeah.
And that was wrong.
It was.
It was wrong when McCarthy did it, just as much as it was wrong when the communists did it. And they did.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that. So we're not here to make him a hero.
What we are here to say is that his thesis was true.
Right. Yeah.
There were communists in the government at various levels, all the way up to the cabinet.
And in that, there's a warning, listeners. There's a warning. Because the message might be true, but dismissed because of who it's coming from. That's why we're warned in our Bible to guard our testimonies.
Yep.
The worst thing that we could ever do is to besmirch the name of our Savior. In other words, proclaim Jesus Christ as God, as Savior, but then live in such a way that demonstrates that we don't actually believe that.
Yeah, yeah.
Why do I say that? Because that's why people reject him. And I'm not saying it's right, because it's not right.
Yeah.
That's not going to be a legitimate defense in the day of judgment.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But we should love people enough to be very careful about guarding our testimony, because it's our testimony that will influence people's decision regarding Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And so getting back to the issue at hand, were there subversives in the federal employ?
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
there was.
Right.
It was real, and it was revealed as true in the declassified decrypts.
Yeah. The Venona Papers.
The Venona Papers.
Yeah.
The Soviet cables, they were released in 1995.
3,000 of them.
Yeah.
3,000 Soviet cables.
It opened these archives and confirmed that organized Soviet networks operated inside the U.S. government. You had Harry Dexter White. He was the number 2 man in the Department of Treasury.
Yeah.
You had the Rosenbergs.
Right.
You had the atomic spy Klaus Fuchs. You had the Silvermaster Network. That Silvermaster Network, that was prolific. It was absolutely prolific. Nathan Gregory Silvermaster, he was in the Treasury Department, and he was the head of an extensive spy consortium that copied official papers and paid dues money to the Communist Party.
They were inside the State Department, the Treasury Department, the OSS, which that was the Office of Strategic Services, I think became the FBI eventually. But they were there.
Yeah.
This Klaus Fuchs.
Yeah.
He had a code name. It was Charles. He was a brilliant guy, German-born, British.
Well, can I say something? If I ever get my code name, can it be something slightly more cool than Charles? Than Charles?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
He was a theoretical physicist who worked directly on the atomic bomb at Los Alamos. He passed highly technical, top-secret scientific blueprints of the plutonium bomb to Soviet courier Harry Gold. In 1949, the Venona Project decryptions unmasked this espionage.
Yeah.
And it was confirmed and confronted by MI5. Fuchs, he ended up confessing, and then that led to Harry Gold, David Greenglass, and the Rosenberg.
All part of the Silvermaster Network.
Now, David Greenglass, he had a cooler code name.
Did he? What was it?
Bumblebee.
Well, I mean, I guess
he
it's
had
not...
2, actually. Bumblebee and Caliber.
Well, Caliber is slightly cooler than Bumblebee.
He was a machinist. He was drafted into the Army and assigned to Los Alamos. He was the brother of Ethel Rosenberg.
Ah, okay.
He was recruited into the spy ring by Ethel's husband, his brother-in-law, Julius Rosenberg.
Yeah.
And his job, Greenglass's job, was to provide crude schematics and notes on the bomb's design.
Right. The FBI knew about these people before McCarthy. They knew about, in the mid-1940s, they knew about Alger Hiss, Lachlan Curry, Harry Dexter White, all Soviet agents.
Yeah.
And they also knew that the 1945 Emerasia case, which involved stolen State Department documents, was fixed, lied about, and covered up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Julius Rosenberg, his code name, well, he had two. Antenna.
Okay.
And, it's all right. How about this one?
Yeah.
Liberal.
Wow.
Why not just call him commie?
Yeah.
He was an engineer. He was an American. But he was a dedicated communist.
Right.
And he headed an extensive multi-person espionage network.
Yeah.
He didn't do the stealing himself. He was the recruiter. He would recruit people to do the dirty work, and he would run the pipeline between the United States and Russia.
Yep.
That's what his job was. Alger Hiss, he was an insider. Likely code name was Alice, A-L-E-S. And I say likely because
They're not sure.
yeah, they weren't 100% sure. But he worked in the State Department. Boog, he helped establish the United Nations.
Yeah.
A communist spy.
Well, there were plenty of communists in the United Nations.
Yes, he ultimately was outed by Whittaker Chambers, who was a Soviet courier.
Yeah.
And Hiss vehemently denied being a spy and was convicted of perjury in 1950.
Yeah. There was one communist spy. Her name was Elizabeth Bentley. She was a communist espionage courier. She would ferry the messages back and forth.
Yep.
And she broke with the communists and went to the FBI with all her evidence. So all this shows that these Venona Papers unveiled the fact that McCarthy was right.
And it revealed how deep this went, because one of them, Lachlan Curry, was a top-level administrative aide to one President Franklin D. Roosevelt.
And we've said it before here on Stanching Tyranny. We've said before, we often would refer to Roosevelt as a commie. Now we know he wasn't a card-carrying commie.
Right. And very few of them were. We understand that. But that doesn't mean they weren't commies.
Yep.
Harry Dexter White was the second highest official at the Treasury Department. He helped co-found the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank.
Yeah.
And he was a commie. They passed highly sensitive economic data and U.S. Treasury policy briefs to Soviet agents.
Now, the thing to remember, though, listeners, is this that we're describing isn't even the evidence that Joe McCarthy had. These things were all uncovered, and not uncovered, but they were known to the FBI before Joe McCarthy.
This was during the 30s.
30s and 40s, And so what did McCarthy actually have? Well, it wasn't nothing. He was working the State Department security problem. The problem that he was working on, it was that the fact that there were what they would refer to as subversives on the payroll. That's what he was working on.
Right.
And that's what he was trying to uncover. That, okay, sure, we have these scandals, but there are still subversives and communists on the payroll.
Right. And this was happening before the Wheeling speech.
And it shows that the penetration was part of the government, and it was very bad. That's what he was working on. But what happened? Well, McCarthyism came along. This is how the word got built, right? The Tydings Committee. Millard, I think was it Millard Tydings? I'm pretty sure that was his name. Millard Tydings was made the Senate subcommittee under Senate Resolution 231 to investigate whether persons who are disloyal to the United States are or have been employed by the Department of State. Sounds simple enough, doesn't it, Bull?
And it sounds clear enough that their job was to investigate the State Department.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a knucklehead, and I can see that.
Now, Millard Tydings was believe it or not, they referred to them this way at the time. He was a conservative Democrat.
Wow, is that right?
Now, he was close to the New Deal establishment.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So he had some interest there. Mm-hmm. And he twice publicly championed a guy by the name of Dean Acheson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Acheson downplayed these investigations. He would often disprove them, quote unquote, by rolling out credentials.
Well, here's the problem. These two were allied.
Right.
In such a way as to protect the State Department.
Yeah, that's right.
At any and all costs. Mm-hmm. That was what we call conflict of interest, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say. Here's something that from inside the State Department. Let me read this here.
Mm-hmm.
Hearings of the House Committee on Un-American Activities, August 30th, 1948, page 1296. Though Burl would later make ambiguous comments about Hiss, it is noteworthy that he re-emphasized his statement as to Acheson, that's the guy we're talking about, Acheson's position in this era. Quote, I explained that Hiss was in favor of a much more complacent policy toward the Soviet Union than I was, therein following the lead of his immediate superior, Dean Acheson, but that honest men might differ on the subject, and did. I testified before the House Committee that Acheson was one of the leaders of the appeasement group at the time.
Mm-hmm. And that's who Tydings chose.
Mm-hmm.
The chairman of this Senate subcommittee.
Yep.
To investigate the Department of State, align himself with one who was sympathetic to the Soviets.
Right. That's what he did.
Acheson.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so what happened was, when the Senate sessions opened, this subcommittee to investigate whether persons who are disloyal to the United States are or have been employed by the Department of State, when those public sessions opened on March 8th, 1950 in the Senate caucus room, McCarthy was the first witness.
Right.
And the mandate was flipped.
Yep.
Because the mandate to investigate the State Department became a mandate to defend Acheson's State Department against these commie infiltration allegations.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whether they were true or not didn't matter.
Yeah.
Defend the State Department became the mandate.
Well, Senator Theodore Green, he was a Democratic senator from Rhode Island. He was a New Deal liberal guy, and he said that the purpose of the hearing was to, quote, give an opportunity to those who had been charged to reply to those charges.
But that wasn't the purpose of the subcommittee. It wasn't.
That's right.
But see, people hearing that would say, well, yeah,
that sounds reasonable.
That sounds reasonable. Sure. I mean, you got right to face your accuser.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Et cetera, right? And so That's what happened.
But nobody was being accused of anything.
Right.
The hearing was to investigate whether persons who are disloyal to the United States are or ever have been employed by the Department of State.
Yeah, and so the investigation of the State Department became rather a forum to clear the accused.
Right.
And to make McCarthy himself look like the bad guy and have to defend himself.
He turned into the defendant, right? Yeah, the machine worked like this. McCarthy would make his charges, right? The person named would come before the panel, deny his allegations, denounce McCarthy as a scoundrel, and present a sheaf of endorsements from eminent people. Thereafter, the subcommittee, without exception, would adopt these responses as facts about the matter, treating the denials in themselves as conclusive evidence of refuting McCarthy.
In other words, they wouldn't investigate. You have letters. Oh, wow.
Wait, who are they from? A professor from Cambridge?
Wow.
Surely. From Harvard. Wow.
That's because they didn't read their Bible book. In Proverbs 18:7, it says...
17 book.
Or Proverbs 18:17, I'm sorry. He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him.
Yeah.
Except nobody was allowed to search these guys.
No.
They brought their own letters that were, well, that's interesting. They're just glowing.
Yeah. And McCarthy himself was the one that was searched. Even though the whole purpose of the hearing was to do these investigations, it all got turned around.
Yeah. But by one count, Bug, McCarthy was interrupted by Chairman Millard Tydings, the chairman, again, of the Senate subcommittee, 85 times in the first 250 minutes of the hearing. On the stand.
Yeah, then one of the accused, a guy named Owen Lattimore, was allowed to read a 10,000-word statement, almost 2.5 hours, uninterrupted. Not interrupted once.
Tydings even gave him rest breaks. McCarthy didn't get any rest breaks.
Oh, Mr. Lattimore.
Are you comfortable? Can I get you some water? Oh, Mr. Lattimore, your chair, is it all right?
Yeah. So here you have this hearing. McCarthy was heckled, and Owen Lattimore, one of the accused, was hosted.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. McCarthy said that the senators should be more concerned with finding out whether the information I have given is true or not than my sources. He can find out whether the information is true by getting the State Department files.
Which they didn't do.
They didn't do it.
They existed, but they left them alone.
That's right.
And they chose to do that.
Yeah.
Because, again, the mandate was shifted.
Yeah, and even in the hearings, I read in the book, Blacklisted by History, during the hearings, one of the common lines to McCarthy was that, oh, well, if you want to investigate, you need to investigate yourself. In other words, you can't have the State Department give you the records. You're going to have to go get them. You're going to have to figure it all out.
Yeah, right. Wow.
That's what they told them.
Yeah, matter of fact, these files, Bug, the subcommittee, they didn't go get them, like you just said. But what they did do was when the State Department argued that they had a rigorous internal review system called the Loyalty Security Board.
Right.
They said that review system is rock solid. Well, that was good enough for Tydings and his subcommittee, who decided that, well, whatever the Loyalty Security Board says, well, that's good enough for us. well, all we need to do as a subcommittee is make sure that the Loyalty Security Board is doing their job.
Yeah.
And they said that they are, and so that's good enough. They didn't investigate anything.
The thing is that what would happen was that the records themselves would vanish.
Oh, what do you know?
The Klaus memo, it was 106 pages, right?
Yeah.
It named 30 plus communists or agents at state. One of them was Alger Hiss, right? Plus scores of other suspects. This report was handed to Tydings, and then it disappeared.
Well, what do you know?
Yeah, it was withdrawn from the National Archives in 1993.
1993.
2 dozen state security documents were supplied to this panel. The Atchison cover sheets survive, right? But the contents had been torn out. In fact, M. Stanton Evans, the author of this book,
He found the file.
he found the file, and he found stapled files where the cover sheet was there, but all the papers behind it were torn out, leaving a wad of paper
The
underneath
little
the statement.
corners that are left behind when you tear pages out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. The 22 additional names McCarthy handed Tydings on March 14th. Tydings promised, we will look them up, examine the files, and make a report. Did he do that?
No, of course not.
Nope.
Yeah. Did he even talk to the State Department about them?
Nope.
No. They became rather the non-existent,
Yeah.
and they vanished from the historical record.
Yep.
And then McCarthy got mocked.
He got nailed for it, saying, "Oh, you don't."
Oh, they
even know.
never existed.
You don't
well, they
even
did
know.
exist. It was hidden.
Yep. Even the newspapers covering his speech in Wheeling went missing.
Really?
The Wheeling Intelligencer issues for the weeks that they were covering his visit vanished. Even the microfilm, gone.
It's like a black hole, Boog.
Yep.
It's a black hole. All the knowledge, all the proof, all the little factoids and connections,
Yep.
the cables, the letters, all that stuff just disappeared and became fables.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Became
the
folklore.
facts disappeared down this black hole, and instead they wove together fables and myths.
And that's what we get today in our history books.
That's
and
right.
that's what became associated with the name McCarthyism.
This is how you make the warning unsayable. In other words, McCarthy was trying to warn the American people, warn the government, warn the Senate panel about what was going on. So what did they do? Well, they didn't disprove it.
No.
They changed the subject to the man, being McCarthy, adopt his enemies' denials as fact, and then burn the files so nobody can check.
Yeah.
And then you give the whole operation the name McCarthyism.
Right. Yep.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
And that's not history, listeners. That's what's called false witness engineered at scale.
Proverbs
That's what it is.
19:5 says, "A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape." And then again in 19:9, when God says something twice, pay attention. "A false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall perish."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's dangerous.
It is dangerous. And again, we're not proclaiming McCarthy to be a saint.
No.
He loaded his own gun, really.
Yeah.
I mean, because he made some errors.
Yeah. They had ammunition that they could use against them, and that's a shame. And that's why we mentioned the warning earlier about guarding our testimony.
He made a big error in judgment when he made an unfair swipe at General George Marshall, right?
Yeah.
He made a huge error when he did that.
Yeah.
And it was an error in judgment and an error of fact. He also made an accusation against Owen Lattimore.
We mentioned that, yeah.
And he accused him of espionage. Now, here's the thing. Owen Lattimore was very sympathetic to communists and to communism. All you have to do is look up his own writings and read them.
Right.
But there is nothing that you would be able to put into the container called espionage. And so when McCarthy accused him of espionage, guess what?
Yeah.
The communists ran with it and beat him up with it. And rightfully so. He used the wrong words. Used the wrong words, and they used it to bludgeon McCarthy and thereby discredit his whole argument.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and they were successful at that.
There was a blow-up browbeating of General Zwicker that was quite harsh from what I understand. And he also, in his big Senate speech, made an error of omission by not telling colleagues how much he was leaning on an older list.
Right.
The older list being what we talked about, right? The list of the subversives that was already uncovered.
Right.
Right. And so what they would say was, "Oh, why are we relitigating all this again?"
Yeah.
That's how they would refute it. And by doing that, making it sound as if every name he had on every list was old news, and let's just move on.
Now, to be sure, was McCarthy being provoked in all this? Absolutely, he was. The enemy they know how to push the buttons.
Yeah.
That's not a defense, though. That's not a defense for him, and it's not a defense for us.
Yeah.
Because the Bible still says, "Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God." And we got to be careful. The tongue, it's an unruly evil. Right?
Unruly member, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. No man can tame it. It's full of deadly poison, James says. And McCarthy, unfortunately, either didn't learn those things or he let himself be put in positions where he just couldn't fight it off.
The numbers mess is really where you can see that, right? His famous figures that he would throw out there were a moving target.
Right.
When he gave his Wheeling speech, he supposedly said that he had a list of 205 employees. Then it was 57. Then it was 81. And so that inconsistency was real, and it hurt him.
Yeah.
Right? But here's what the records show when you actually check. And this is in the book.
Yeah.
The 57 wasn't invented. Critics said it was a stale 1948 statistic, yet when you check the State Department's own 1950 rosters, McCarthy's number erred on the low side. At least 67 of the people he and his staff named were still employed by the State Department in 1950. And at least 13 more were on other federal payrolls.
That's 80.
Yeah, like the Treasury.
Sounds like 81 to me, close enough.
The Navy, the United Nations, the CIA, the White House, the Army, the Department of Commerce. All roughly 80 still in official posts, because that's what they did, Boog.
Yeah.
When the heat was on, they would just shuffle these people around.
Well, Boog, the fact is the 205, does indeed trace to a real documented pool of adverse State Department security cases that shrank over time. The suspects were quietly eased out. That 205 became less than 200 because of resignations, transfers, all that sort of thing. 341 became 284, which became 205. So it wasn't a number that Joe McCarthy pulled out from thin air for the Wheeling speech. And the machine scrubbed the count. When a typist miskeyed the real suspect, Fishburne, as the non-existent Washburn, the State Department publicly answered, never employed by the Department of State, which was true of some guy named Washburn, but they knew who was being talked about. It was Fishburne, and they knew it when they wrote it, and they said that with a straight face. That's evil. That's deceptive. The point is that, was McCarthy sloppy? Yeah, he was a little sloppy with the numbers. He was reckless with people. He perhaps was aggravated, tired of being deceived, lied to, tricked. No doubt. And maybe, just maybe, his pride got a hold of him. That's quite possible. I could see how that could happen. But as real as those flaws were, his enemies exploited those flaws. And why did they do that? So that they could deflect attention. Again, the whole subcommittee mandate changed from investigating the State Department to defending the State Department. That's a lot more incriminating than it is truthful. This should have never happened. But the fact is, Joe McCarthy did in fact ruin some innocent people. He did in fact bend the numbers, and we're not going to defend that.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have done those things, no doubt.
Yeah,
he shouldn't have done them.
yeah.
But that doesn't mean that what they did to him was right.
Yeah, yeah, and they weaponized the man. Mm-hmm. That's what they did. They took a flawed man, just like any other man that we know, and took his name and twisted it so that they could weaponize it.
Right,
and that's what they did.
And again, we have to be careful. We have to be careful. These things happen. They can happen to anybody. They can happen to us. We need to have the prayers that are in our Bible given to us to be our help.
Yeah.
In our hearts and in our mind. Job said, "My lips shall not speak wickedness, nor my tongue utter deceit." Psalm 34:9 says, "Keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile." Psalm 120 verse 2 says, "Deliver my soul, O Lord, from lying lips and from a deceitful tongue." Why would we have to pray that? Because that's our inclination.
Yeah.
It is. When we want to be right, we'll go to anything, any length to be right.
Yeah. And that's, I think, what happened with McCarthy.
I think so, too.
The problem, though, Boog, is that false witness cuts both ways.
Yeah.
And a culture that abandons the truth loses the ability to tell a watchman from a witch hunter.
That's true. That's true.
That's what happens. Mm-hmm. If we look at the commandment, right? Mm-hmm. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Exodus 20, verse 16. Mm-hmm. God gave a procedure for exactly this situation.
Yeah.
And Tydings, Millard Tydings, inverted every step of it.
Yeah.
In Deuteronomy chapter 19, it says, if a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both the men, between whom the controversy is, shall stand before the Lord, and the judges shall make diligent inquisition.
Diligent.
Yeah. And behold, if the witness be a false witness, then shall ye do unto him as he had thought to have done unto his brother. God demands diligent inquisition.
Yeah. Open the files. Search it out.
Yep.
Figure it out.
Right.
Don't stop until you have figured it out.
Yeah. Is that what Millard Tydings did as chairman of that Senate committee?
No, they did the opposite.
Right.
The people allowed to testify in their own defense, they brought letters.
And then they accused McCarthy instead of addressing the accusations against them. It adopted the accused denials as the verdict and buried the evidence.
That's right.
They ripped the papers, the files, right out of their filing cabinet and destroyed them.
Yeah. The interesting thing is how God put the justice of such a scenario in his word.
Yeah.
But he said, in such a case as the false witness is found to be a false witness, he's going to have to pay a penalty.
Right.
He's going to have to pay the penalty he meant for his brother.
Yep.
That's justice.
Yeah.
And God loves justice. Let's not forget that. He loves it.
So you have the false witness by McCarthy, right? Where he smeared a man he couldn't prove of espionage. Again, using the exact definition of the word. He wasn't guilty, Lattimore, of espionage, right? So we don't excuse that. He's bound by the commandment as well as Millard Tydings.
Yeah, it doesn't make what was done to him any more right. It was just as wrong when McCarthy did it as when the committee did it to McCarthy.
But the thing is, the false witness against McCarthy was far larger.
Yeah.
And the whole nation was taught to repeat this manufactured legend as fact and to hate his name after never even examining it.
Yeah.
And so this is bearing false witness by the millions on autopilot.
Right.
Because every high school textbook, you interview people on the street, they are not going to have a high opinion of Joe McCarthy.
Yeah.
And the problem, it all boils down to that the fact that a truthless culture can't tell the difference.
Yeah. When the culture stops loving the truth, we're in danger. Everyone's in danger. The watchman gets called the witch hunter, not because of evidence, but because the culture doesn't know what's true and frankly doesn't care.
In Isaiah 5:20 it says, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness. Right? People stop loving the truth enough to search a claim, the loudest denial wins.
Yeah.
And the man who names the danger becomes the danger. The watchman gets called the witch hunter, not because the evidence changed, but because the culture lost the will to check.
In this world, don't forget, none calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity, and they speak lies. They conceive mischief, and they bring forth iniquity. And that's not me.
Yep.
That's the word of God, Isaiah 59:4. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after God. God is not at all in his thoughts. He hath said in his heart, God hath forgotten. He hideth his face. He will never see it.
Yeah.
But we know the truth.
Yep.
God does see it.
Evans said this in his book. He said, "The tell that never fails. The people trying to hold back information are the ones who will be embarrassed by it. And thus the people who aren't being truthful. Who burned the files?
Yeah.
Right? Who tore the pages from behind them staples?
Right.
Who refused to open the cabinet? Right?
Right.
You follow the shredder to find the liar.
And what we don't want to do is get all mad and irate about this, lest we forget.
Yeah.
The eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good.
Yeah.
By mercy and truth iniquity is purged, and by the fear of the Lord men depart from evil.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about these people that have done these evil things not getting what's coming to them. Our prayer should be that they came to repent of their wickedness and trust in Jesus Christ as their Savior.
Yeah.
Just like we all have to do.
Right.
But if not, justice will be upheld. But don't worry about that.
Yeah. But understand, the same trick runs today, right? The same trick runs. And if you don't believe the truth, you're going to fall for it.
Right.
Every time.
Yeah.
The thing we're trying to show here isn't that McCarthy was a saint.
No, he wasn't.
What we're trying to show is that we've been trained by people who buried the evidence to feel contempt on command for names we've never investigated.
And let's not think that that's not happening today.
Well, look at the Fauci hearings. Look at the Fauci hearings. He sat up there pleading the fifth. He's trying to bury the evidence.
Right.
It'll come out, right?
Yeah, he's not burying anything. He's not.
So ask yourself gently, what else? What other man, movement, or fact have you been handed a verdict on, preloaded, with the files conveniently sealed?
Yeah.
It comes to a whole bunch of different issues, right? It does. You can run a whole bunch of different issues through it. And what happens when you question?
You're called
What
names.
happened you're called names.
Called names.
You're a science denier if you don't get the COVID shot.
Right. Nobody wants to be a science denier, do they?
You're an anti-vaxxer. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're a homophobe.
You're a whatever phobe.
You're a McCarthyite.
It's all the same.
The name changes.
It's the same tactic.
That's it. It's the same exact
Remember,
tactic.
Satan is a liar. He's the father of lies.
Yep.
But God is truth itself. Jesus Christ is truth incarnate. You can trust what you read in that old King James Bible. You can trust it.
Yeah.
Open it and read it.
Yeah. Because the ninth commandment forbids false witness. But it doesn't forbid true witness.
Right.
Right? And the Christian is called to be the truest witness in the room.
That's right.
In every dealing that we have, we're to be the true witness.
No
Every
lies
time.
of the truth. It said in 1 John.
Yeah.
No lies of the truth.
Yep.
If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not the truth. 1 John says.
Remember in John 8:32 it says, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Right? You had a flawed man, blind and mocked in the enemy's temple. He reached for the pillars and said, "Let me die with the Philistines." And the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. Joe McCarthy was no Samson, and he was no saint.
Right.
But when the Soviet cables were finally unsealed, the man they had buried under a mountain of false witness turned out on the one thing that mattered to have been telling the truth. They got him, but they did not get the truth.
Right.
The truth keeps, and who the sun sets free is free indeed, free even of the fear of a word. We'll be right back.